This is your board game shortcut to the White Castle. In this Eurogame, each of us leads a minor family in feudal Japan, trying to earn prestige and influence at the local lord's court in and around Himeji Castle. We send our family members into different roles. We station warriors in training yards, we put gardeners to work in the castle gardens, and we secure access to the castle itself, where we climb the social ladder and compete for the ruler's favor. Long story short, we are trying to impress the court in as many ways as possible. The more and the better we manage to do that, the more victory points we will score at the end of the game. To get there, we make smart decisions and take advantage of synergies. Every turn matters because across the 3 rounds, each player only gets 9 turns in total. The real skill is to craft powerful chain combos so you squeeze as much value as possible out of a single turn. I'll explain all of that in detail in a moment. For now, let's set up the White Castle. Place the 3 bridges onto the main board once you have assembled them. Take these 2 card decks, shuffle them separately and then place them on the castle. Place 3 Steward level cards onto the first and lowest level of the castle. Then place 2 indigo colored Diplomat level cards onto the second level of the castle. On 3 spaces of the first level of the castle you can see this symbol. Take the small die tiles and place 3 different colored ones onto those 3 spaces. After that, place random die tiles onto the remaining spaces in numerical order. Each castle room must contain at least 2 different colors. At the bottom of the board you'll find the well, where there are spaces for 2 of the remaining die tiles. Place those tiles here with the other side face up. At the top, for the 3rd level of the castle, we need 1 random card from this deck. To the right of the castle you'll find the training yards for the warriors. Randomly place these tiles onto the indicated spaces, making sure to pay attention to their colors. For example, 1 beige tile here and 1 blue tile here. The other area outside the castle is the garden on the left side, where we already placed the bridges. Here we need random cards from these decks, which are placed on both sides of the river. You can tell which side they belong to by looking at the backs of the cards. Now we need the dice for the bridges. 1 set per player, plus 1 additional set. So with 2 players you use 3 sets, and with 4 players 5 sets. We'll assume a 3-player game here, so we use 4 sets. Sort the dice by color and then roll them. Place the highest values on the right side of each bridge and the lowest values on the left side. The remaining dice are placed in order in the middle of the bridge. That covers the general play area. Now each player takes a domain board and places their wooden pieces on it. At the top place the Courtiers, who will later be sent into the castle. In the middle place the gardeners, who will of course work in the gardens. And at the bottom place the warriors, who will prove themselves in the training yards. By now it becomes clear that there are 3 main areas on the board, each with its own type of worker. Naturally, that also means that there are corresponding resources. Food is used to place gardeners into the gardens, iron is required to deploy warriors to the training yards, and Mother of Pearl allows a courtier to work their way up through the castle toward the Daimyo. Take the 2 decks of orange starting resource cards and yellow starting action cards. Draw 1 more card from each deck than there are players and combine them into pairs. We are playing with 3 players, so there are 4 pairs available. The player who wants to take the first turn last chooses a pair first and places the heron on the lowest position of the turn order. Finally, the starting player chooses a pair and places the heron on the top position. You place the yellow action card onto your domain board. The orange card defines your starting setup, which can include resources, seals, coins or a bonus card. If you see this symbol, it means you may freely distribute 3 resource points. If you receive a bonus card, place it horizontally in your lantern area, just like you do with the starting resource card. Next, place your clan points marker behind the herons and stack your influence markers with the starting player on top. Then place the round marker in the top right corner right next to the first space. And with that, the setup is complete. The White Castle is played over 3 rounds and in each round you only get 3 turns. So every decision really matters if you want to score as many victory points as possible in the end. Each turn starts by choosing 1 die from one of the bridges. You either take the highest value on the right or the lowest value on the left, and then slide a die from the middle into the newly freed space. You then place the chosen die onto an available space according to its color. With more than 2 players, you may also stack a die on top of at most one other die that is already there, but this never applies to your own domain board. If the value of the die you place is higher than the printed value or higher than the die underneath it, you gain the difference in coins. If your die is lower, you must pay the difference. If both values are the same, you can immediately resolve the action shown next to that die space. This can mean gaining certain resources, moving steps on the passage of time track, or using one of the 3 actions to place your gardeners, warriors or courtiers. These effects can chain into one another, but you never need another die to resolve them. There are also a couple of additional actions which we will get to shortly, namely the lantern and the well. Once you have completed your action, the next player takes their turn. A round ends once every player has taken 3 turns by using 3 dice. I will explain exactly what happens at the end of a round after we take a closer look at the individual actions first. First up is the Courtier. As mentioned before, Courtiers are used inside the castle. To do that, you need the castle icon. You can find it down here, but it also appears on various other cards throughout the game. First, you may take your leftmost Courtier from your domain board and place him at the castle gate, paying 2 coins. Second, you may then move either that courtier or another one of your courtiers already in the castle by paying Mother of Pearl. Moving 1 level costs 2 Mother of Pearl, and moving up 2 levels costs 5 Mother of Pearl. This movement cannot be split between different courtiers. You are not required to perform both parts of the courtier action in order to use it. If you move up inside the castle, you choose 1 space on that level, place your courtier and take the action card from that space onto your domain board. Immediately replace the card in the castle with a new one from the deck. You may now resolve one of the light background actions. The card that was previously on your domain board is then moved face down to your lantern area. I'll explain why that matters in just a moment. If a courtier reaches the very top of the castle, you choose 1 available position on the Daimyo card. Place your courtier there, gain the indicated bonus and resolve the lantern action once, which I'll explain shortly. If all positions are already occupied, you place the courtier next to the card and only resolve the lantern action as your reward. To place a gardener into the gardens, you look for the bridge icon. When you use one of these actions, you take your leftmost gardener and choose which garden card you want to place him on. The cost is always shown in food. You may not place more than 1 of your own gardeners on the same card. Pay the food cost and then activate the benefit shown on the riverside of that card. Quite often, this also involves additional costs. Generally, any number shown in red means you must pay that amount. In this case, you would pay 3 coins to perform the action. The warrior action works in a very similar way. So when you use an action space with the training yard icon, you may take a warrior from your domain board and place him into one of the 3 training yard spaces. You pay the indicated iron cost and then gain the reward shown at the top of that space. These rewards can be resources or additional actions, which you resolve immediately. On this training yard, you may perform both reward actions. In our example, this would allow you to perform an action on your domain board, which I'll explain a bit later. Remember, you don't need another die, but you may still have to pay the costs for follow-up actions you take. So as you can see, some turns can trigger multiple actions as long as you plan ahead and make smart decisions. The well is a cheap action and can be a useful fallback option, especially when you are short on coins. Unlike the other die spaces, the well action can be used an unlimited number of times. Place a die there and gain coins equal to the difference between your die value and the printed value of 1, and ignore any other dice that may already be on that space. Then gain 1 seal and everything shown on the small tiles in the well. On your domain board, you have 3 action spaces where you can place dice, but only 1 die per space. The more workers you have sent onto the board, the more bonuses become available. When you place a die on your domain board, you first gain all uncovered rewards in that row. Then you resolve the card action corresponding to that same row. Now let's talk about the lantern action, which I mentioned several times already. You will see the lantern symbol in various places, but most importantly on the left side of the bridges. Whenever you choose the lowest die for your action, you may immediately resolve the lantern action. The lantern action grants you everything shown on the cards placed in your lantern area. In this example, that would be 1 iron, 1 step on the passage of time track, 1 victory point and 2 coins. The more cards you add to this area through courtier actions in the castle, the more rewarding the lantern action becomes. Let's take a look at the passage of time track. As shown before, this symbol allows you to move forward on that track. The farther to the right you are at the end of the game, the more victory points you will score from it. However, to move from one season to the next, you must pay Daimyo seals. If you would advance on the track but cannot or do not want to pay the required costs, you cannot move further. Daimyo seals are not only used here. Throughout the game you will often spend seals to gain other benefits. You may hold a maximum of 5 Daimyo seals. You can also exchange them at any time. One seal can be traded for 1 coin or 2 seals for 1 resource of your choice. A round ends once every player has taken 3 turns, meaning 3 dice per player have been used. First, determine the turn order for the next round. The player whose influence marker is farther along or higher up on the passage of time track will act earlier than those behind or below them. Adjust the heron markers on the turn order track accordingly. If it was the first or second round and not the final one, you now activate your gardeners, as long as there is still at least 1 die on the corresponding bridge. This means garden rewards are resolved once more in turn order without paying the food cost. Next, collect all dice, roll them and place them back onto the 3 bridges. Finally, advance the round marker by 1 space, and the player whose heron is on top begins the next round. If this was your 3rd round, you only perform the turn order step from the usual end of round sequence, since it will matter for tiebreakers. The garden activation is skipped. Then you score all victory points and record them on the scoring track at the top of the board. First, victory points are generated from coins and resources. At this point, you may still exchange Daimyo seals for coins or resources. For every 5 coins, you gain 1 victory point. For each type of resource where you have 3 to 6 units, you gain 1 victory point. If you have 7 units of a resource, you score 2 victory points instead. Next, look at the passage of time track. The space your marker is on shows how many victory points you score from it. After that, score your workers on the board. Each gardener scores the victory points shown on the garden card they are placed on. A courtier is worth 1 victory point at the gate, 3 points on the first level, 6 points on the second level and 10 points on the top level of the castle. The value of your warriors depends on the number of courtiers you have inside the castle, not counting the gate. In this example, this warrior scores 3 victory points because the red player has 3 courtiers in the castle. The other warrior scores 6 victory points because those 3 courtiers are counted twice. If you run out of space on the scoring track, which can easily happen, take the 40 or 80 point tiles as needed. Once all points have been added up, the winner is determined. In case of a tie, the player whose heron is highest in the turn order wins. I hope this rules explanation was helpful and that you can jump right into the game with confidence. If you'd like to see more board game content like this, feel free to check out my channel. And if you like what you see, consider subscribing. I'll also be covering the Matcha expansion and the dual version in the near future. As always, I really appreciate your feedback, so feel free to leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, have fun playing and see you next time.